Hello, everyone. This is Lydia French. Welcome to our November Teaching and Learning for Student Success monthly webinar series. This month's webinar features one of our peer mentors and Catch the Next Director of Research and Evaluation, Dr. Doran. She is currently a visiting assistant professor of higher education at Iowa State University and serves as the Director of Research and Evaluation for Catch the Next. She completed her doctorate in educational leadership at the University of Texas at San Antonio in May of 2015. Her dissertation, which focused on one college's implementation of integrated reading and writing, won the Dissertation of the Year award from the Council for the Study of Community Colleges. Erin continues her research on reading and writing in community colleges and how to best serve Latino students in particular. And I'm going to just go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Doran.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let me start my presentation. So as Lydia indicated, I do serve as the Director of Research and Evaluation. I became involved with Puente while I was a doctoral student, and I connected with Diane Lerma and all of the Palo Alto team, who have been very supportive and wonderful to me over the last 4 or 5 years. And the college that I collected my dissertation data, which I'm presenting today, was one of the original Puente sites. And even though I did not set out to do a comparison study of Puente versus what I call the mainstream curriculum or the non-Puente INRW curriculum, I'm presenting some of the data that focuses a lot on the mainstream curriculum, but I think it also kind of supports how special the Puente curriculum is, and how special the professional development that Puente provides its faculty. And so without further ado, I know some of these slides I'll probably go through faster than others, especially since I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, and this was part of a presentation that I did to researchers and practitioners who were from around the country. But how we got here in terms of INRW, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board announced its initiative to integrate reading and writing in 2012. And what's interesting about integrated reading and writing is that it's cost effective and time efficient for both institutions and students theoretically, but there isn't a whole lot of empirical research that really effectively justifies or explains how reading and writing are best taught together, especially in post-secondary settings. The relationship between reading and writing seems to be more of a given, more of an assumption, rather than something that we understand at a cognitive level. And so, but I think every English and reading teacher understands that there is a very strong relationship, that strong readers are more often likely to be better writers, and things like that. So the original problem statements that I was working with when I started my dissertation journey was one, the fact that the research on community college faculty and on teaching is very underdeveloped, especially in developmental classrooms in particular. If you have not read the Grubb and Grabiner book, it's called Basic Skills Education in Colleges. That's a wonderful, wonderful book, and I think that W. Norton Grubb, before he passed away, was very much a champion of community college faculty, especially faculty who work with developmental students. And then also this 2-year College English Association white paper that came out last year was very critical about developmental education reform efforts in particular, stating that it ignored the differences in training and pedagogy and theoretical perspectives among disciplines. In another life, I worked in a graduate support role at UT San Antonio. And I was often working with students who wanted to get their master's degree in order to teach composition at the college level. And more often than not, even though I worked for the graduate program that was focused on reading, I had to steer them toward the English program that was far more literature heavy and things like that. And that the program at UTSA had not developed a very strong composition program until the last 3 or 4 years. Um, but there are very fundamental differences between master's degrees in English versus master's degrees in education that focus on reading and things like that. And so even just looking at the credentialing process behind INRW and how that was going to affect community college faculty was something that was of interest to me. Um, Again, the dearth of research on community college faculty, Susan Twombly and Barbara Townsend's work, where they call community college faculty often underlooked and undervalued. The fact is that there isn't a whole lot of incentive for community college faculty to do research in addition to all the service and all the teaching that they do. And that four-year university faculty who do research they tend to look at themselves rather than community college faculty. So much of that research focuses on research one institutions, universities, and things like that. And then again, W. Norton Grubb's work is amazing. His book from 1999 called Honored but Invisible on community college faculty is also just a wonderful book. So the one research question that I'm presenting data from today was how did faculty at one community college in Texas perceive that their work was changing in response to the state policy implementing integrated reading and writing? And to get at this, the theoretical framework that I used was something called cultural historical activity theory. What I liked about this particular model, and I'll give you the model is right here, is that I was able to look at the interactions between how state policies change, how course content and pedagogy and professional development, basically the relationships between all of these things. And if you notice that all of the different arrows, and every time I show this to my husband, he gets super confused about what I'm actually looking at because it is messy. And I think that all of the arrows moving in different directions, and I almost think of like a domino effect, that if something in the division of labor part of the triangle happens, that's going to impact all parts of the triangle. I think that this sort of model or this sort of lens at looking at human activity is more naturalistic. It honors the fact that we as humans are very messy in our behavior, that it's not a linear process, that there is a sense-making element to implementing curriculum that goes on campuses, with hopefully the outcome of moving students into college level coursework. So this was a case study in Nature. I chose to focus on one community college campus just so I could get into a study that was very contextually rich and that I could use as many data sources as possible. So the bulk of my data came from interviews. I also had things like syllabi, various assignments, there were exit exam prompts. Some faculty members were sharing with me some of their teaching tools that they use, whether that be copies of their PowerPoints or different handouts that they gave to students, help sheets, and things like that. I also looked at state policy documents, and I did some archival research on the college. I was also very interested for that historical part of my theoretical framework, was looking at how the history of the institution framed its commitment to Latino students, to an awareness of the community that it serves. I found that this, I think, influenced the reasoning for the college to buy into Puente as early on as it did, which I'll explain in a second. So my site, Adelante College, is an urban area in South Texas. It's located in a historically underserved section of the city. It's one of 5 campuses within the River City Colleges system, and as of fall 2014, which is when I was collecting my data, it was just under 70% Hispanic or Latino. And the thing that's interesting about Adelante is that it was founded through community activism. this part of the city in which it was established, a group of community organizers got together and really lobbied the city and the state for the creation of the college. And there's a very deeply embedded commitment to that particular section of the city where Adelante is situated. Oh, sorry about the text. So there were 7 faculty participants. I looked for faculty who were teaching INRW, any sort of INRW class in the fall 2014 semester and spring 2015 semester. I recruited most of my participants via email, met them either on campus or off campus. Some of the interviews were as short as 45 minutes. A couple of them were as long as 2 hours. I also talked to the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs of the River City Colleges system, as well as Tomas, who was the department chair for English reading and foreign languages. And then this just sort of breaks down the various participant aspects of the participants that were salient to, so for example, what their educational background is in. I had 3 people who had reading backgrounds, people who had been at Adelante College for various numbers of years. The employment status was interesting to me in terms of trying to get a representative number of adjuncts versus tenure or tenure track. And then you'll see that there were 3 participants. It was Linda, Suzanne, and Jorge who were involved with the Puente program. Jorge and Suzanne taught in the Puente program at the time, and Linda was a mentor, coordinator, and she was also the faculty advisor to the Puente Club, the student club. And then just so you can see the timeline, my data was collected from November 2014 to February 2015. I was just thinking today about how actually I collected my first interview for this project the Monday of Thanksgiving week 2 years ago. So it's just kind of interesting how quickly time has gone. You'll note that the policy change from the coordinating board was handed down in 2012, and then 2012 also marked the time that Puente began at Adelante College. And this timeline, particularly where it notes the mainstream curriculum that was implemented and then the new curriculum, that was the non-Puente curriculum that was taught to the rest of the mainstream students who tested into INRW. Data analysis, I transcribed everything, went through and coded it. For those of you who are interested in research processes and everything, I'm happy to talk to you about this in more detail. But some of the findings, first of all, one thing that was interesting to me was that the mainstream curriculum really focused on curriculum standardization. And I think that that really came from the INRW lead at this campus, who was an English and writing, came from an English and writing background, really did not seem to trust her faculty, particularly the reading faculty, to teach writing. And so she felt that by standardizing it as much as possible, despite the fact that everybody got the same professional development, they got 9 hours of INRW workshops. She did not think that that was sufficient enough to really allow academic freedom or creativity into the mainstream curriculum. And that meant that essentially faculty got about 90% of their syllabus given to them. They were all forced to use the same textbook. And then 10% of that was theirs to play with whatever they wanted. And the other thing was that reading faculty were all of a sudden charged with having to prepare their students for an exit exam. One thing that was really interesting was that there was a tension between the Puente curriculum and the non-Puente curriculum, because the Puente curriculum is sort of fundamentally opposed to a high-stakes exit exam at the end of the fall semester, which whether or not students can progress into English 1301 in the spring semester. For the mainstream curriculum, again, this mistrust about whether or not reading instructors are really qualified to teach writing. What's also really interesting is there was a mistrust among the reading faculty about whether or not writing faculty could adequately teach reading and really understand the complex processes that students undergo as they increase and build their reading skills. And so one reading faculty member in particular, Jeanette, was calling attention to the fact that she didn't believe that students were doing enough reading and that they weren't reading the right sort of textbooks, that rather just reading from the boring standard readers that students often encounter in these classes. They weren't reading novels, for instance. And some of the ways that this came out was that there was resistance. There were faculty members at another one of the River City colleges who had been teaching reading and who defected from the reading and English programs and ended up going to ESL. Or people who had decided to retire earlier, to opt out of teaching altogether, to just leave the institution, rather than deal with a lot of the politics swirling around INRW. In terms of the tools where professional development, and especially where the differences with Puente came out, were here. The INRW faculty at Adelante College were exempt from the 9 hours of workshops. I still talked to the Puente faculty about their professional development. They talked about going to Berkeley, about the professional development calls and things like that, the Puente Summer Institute, the Fall and Spring Institutes. And what was interesting is that when I compared those to the mainstream curriculum, the mainstream faculty members, I asked, what did you learn in your 9 hours of workshop? And they could not give me a single answer. They would say, yeah, we think we learned a lot, but then if I said, like, tell me something, what do you implement in your classes? Most of them could not name a single thing. The Puente faculty, when I asked, what did you learn or what have you brought back to your classes, they talked about the different readings they came back with, the strong lines in particular, the photograph, a lot of the same sort of assignments that we still hear about and see demonstrated even as recently as at the Puente Fall Institute a couple of weeks ago. And so I think that the sort of ongoing professional development that Puente offers is something that enables faculty to learn how to implement a curriculum and then also learn how to make it their own. And in terms of the textbook, for instance, the mainstream curriculum, as part of that standardization, was having difficulty finding a textbook that they felt balanced the course content between reading and writing. Where the Puente faculty, everybody does something a little bit different at all of the colleges, and then even within the colleges in terms of the types of reading they're doing, what books they're reading and using, and that just sort of changes all the time according to what the course instructor thinks is appropriate. But I think that just the exchange that goes on among the Puente faculty is something that I definitely did not see. And so some of the discussion on this that I had was, one was that integrated reading and writing course that came out of the mainstream curriculum, truly an integrated course, where I saw true integration in terms of reading, using the readings to develop writing skills and to write about the readings, was something that I saw described more in the Puente classes and by the Puente faculty than by the mainstream. This concept of ongoing professional development, there's some work that's come out of the Community College Research Center at Columbia University that has discussed how you can't just offer professional development before a new curriculum is implemented. Faculty may not know what sort of questions to ask or what sort of issues they're going to have until they actually start to implement it. So if you just do the one-shot 9 hours of workshop, that's not really going to be adequate. That the maintaining the knowledge and talent of faculty who opt out, I think, is something that is very key. Even within Puente, for instance, where some of the Puente faculty decide not to teach for 1 year or decide to take a break from the Puente program, those skill sets and that knowledge doesn't go away. Even in the site visits that I've gone to by talking to some of the faculty, they become mentors to the newer Puente faculty, or they at least become resources to the newer faculty. So I think that that knowledge and talent within the Puente familia tends to stay there. And then, of course, something that's discussed that has more to do with the mainstream faculty is the inclusion of adjuncts and policy changes. Some of the limitations, one, quantitative data could have been added to the discussion. I did not go into classrooms and I did not talk to students. I looked at this as one stepping stone to a broader trajectory of getting to know INRW, the Puente program, etc. And then this is just a snapshot of one college's response at one point in time. And then the implications of the research and some of the things that I'm trying to develop within my own research agenda is, one, I'm very, very focused on faculty perspectives in terms of policy, curriculum, and teaching, and really wanting to capture those voices. Wanting to know more about best practices within professional development, and then also finding ways for faculty to be able to share their knowledge and experiences. This is something that within Puente I think we do very, very well. And so it's how can we take some of the professional development practices from Puente and perhaps scale those up to the broader faculty community on their campuses. And then I just want to do a shameless plug. I'm still looking for participants on a study that I'm doing for both current and past Puente faculty. So if you are interested, please email me. There's my Iowa State email address, or you can email me at erin.doran@catchthenext.org.